He looked me in the eye like he owned the truth. But papers don't lie. And this trust was sealed, untouchable. I smiled quietly. Because they didn't know, the trap was already sprung. The first time I saw the binder, it was buried beneath my mother's scarves, a relic she never touched, tucked away in a cedar drawer lined with lavender sachets and silent decisions. The room smelled like old perfume and tension. I wasn't supposed to find it, but I did. Thick, off-white pages, crisp tabs labeled asset control, trust execution, advisory oversight. The kind of words that didn't just hint, they screamed authority. It wasn't hers, not really, not anymore. And, as I would learn, not his either. My father's voice still echoed from that afternoon in the kitchen when he slammed the marble island like it owed him money. "We'll take it back. It's ours," he barked, veins pressing hard against his temple, eyes already bloodshot from entitlement. "Dad?" I had said, cautious. "It's under advisory control now. There's a structure, a legal wall. You can't just—" "Legal walls crumble," he snapped. "You forget who you're talking to." But I hadn't. That was the problem. 2 days later, I was sitting across from Mr. Geraldine Voss, the financial advisor listed in the trust. His office was the polar opposite of our family's storm. Cool light, modern furnishings, the subtle hum of wealth in every polished surface. I half expected a minimalist shrine to capitalism. Instead, there was a small photo of his daughter graduating from MIT and a dying bonsai on the windowsill. "I'm guessing you're here about your father," he said without looking up. I nodded. "I've already spoken to him, and your mother." "And?" He finally met my eyes. "And there's nothing either of them can do. The trust is irrevocable. I manage the asset package under federal compliance. Unless you're the named beneficiary, and you're not, they can't even sneeze near it without me knowing." The word hit like cold metal. Irrevocable. I leaned back, the full weight of family mythology crumbling behind my ribs. The estate wasn't ours anymore. Not in the way my father believed. Not in the way we were raised to believe. The silence between us was broken only by the sound of a new email pinging on his screen. "You're not surprised," he said. "No," I answered too quickly. "You knew." "I suspected? Then why are you here?" I met his gaze. "Because they'll never stop, and someone's going to try something stupid." 2 paragraphs later, buried in the fine print of a Schedule C attachment, I saw it, the clause. Subsection 4. D. In the event of legal contestation by any party not named herein, the advisor shall be empowered to notify the court and initiate a freeze on all distributed assets until the claim is dismissed. A freeze. If they pushed, they'd lose everything. Back in the house, dinner was unusually quiet. My mother chewed slowly, deliberately, like she was trying not to scream. My father. He poured himself a 3rd glass of Chateau Margaux and said nothing at all. Then, as I reached for the salt, he whispered it, not to me, but into his wine. She was supposed to stay loyal. I didn't ask who he meant, because I already knew. They thought they'd buried the truth. But I was just getting started. The trust file lived in my bag for days like a coiled snake. Silent, patient, waiting. I took it with me everywhere. To the coffee shop where baristas knew my name, but not my war. To the late-night walks through the park when I couldn't sleep, even to the family Zoom calls where everyone pretended nothing was unraveling. It was surreal, really, watching them laugh about vacation homes while knowing one signature could turn it all to dust. When the family met with the advisor again, the air was sharp with unspoken threats. My father wore his usual uniform, tailored blazer, false calm, that glint in his eye that said, I win negotiations. He didn't know this wasn't a negotiation. Let's revisit the asset division, he began, smooth as oil. Geraldine didn't flinch. There's no division. This isn't an estate in probate. It's a living trust, active, protected. Don't insult me. We both know structures can be amended. The advisor folded his hands. Not this one. Not without beneficiary consent. And what if the original beneficiary is no longer competent? My stomach dropped. My mother turned pale. You'd need medical documentation, Geraldine replied, voice clipped. And even then, the trust reverts to protective custody, not to family. That landed like a gunshot. I watched my father blink, processing, calculating. He wasn't used to walls that didn't move when he leaned. Later in the driveway, he cornered me. The night air was heavy, Florida thick. You've been digging, he said. I've been reading, I replied. She was going to change it before she got sick. She didn't. She tried. We have drafts. Drafts aren't deeds. He exhaled hard, the kind of breath men take before they decide how cruel they're willing to be. You think this makes you strong? You think siding with a stranger over your own blood is power? No, I said quietly. I think it's protection. He scoffed. For who? For all of us. From you. 2 days passed in eerie calm. No calls, no threats. Just that strange, waiting quiet before a hurricane touches land. Then came the letter, delivered by courier, signed, certified. My name on the envelope. Inside, a legal petition. My father was filing a claim, contesting the trust, alleging duress, coercion, diminished capacity, a full frontal assault. And he was dragging my mother through it. I remember sitting on the kitchen floor, papers spread around me like shattered glass. Every paragraph was a twist of the knife, that she didn't know what she signed, that the advisor manipulated her, that I had interfered. I called Geraldine. They filed. I know. They're using her illness. They won't win. But they'll ruin her trying. He paused. Then let's not let them. And that's when we started building the response. Document by document, date by date, one contradiction at a time. They had drama. We had receipts. If they thought a court would save them, they hadn't read the fine print. Ever seen family power plays unfold like this? Drop your thoughts below, or share if you've ever faced a silent war behind closed doors. It started with a typo. One date, off by 2 days. In the draft amendment they submitted, my mother supposedly signed on March 14th. But her hospital admittance form, time-stamped and notarized, was dated March 12th. She'd been under heavy sedation by the 13th. On the 14th, she couldn't even hold a pen. That's where we began. And once we started pulling at threads, the whole illusion began to unravel. Geraldine was clinical, precise, but beneath that, I could feel his pulse rising. He had a daughter, too. He understood what this was, what it wasn't. This isn't just fraud, he murmured, scanning a third document. It's desperation. The response we filed was sharp as glass. We included hospital logs, caregiver statements, pharmacy timestamp records, all sealed, all legal. There was no room for interpretation. My mother was not capable of executing any document that week. Still, they pressed on. My father's legal team countered with affidavits from old friends, vague, strategically emotional. She had mentioned plans to revise. She expressed regrets, all meaningless in court, but useful for drama, public drama. I began to notice stories slipping into local business circles, whispers, headlines like, "Prominent Family Trust Under Dispute." My LinkedIn saw a spike in views. So did my old employer's CEO trust. Asset control, family conflict. The triggers were now public. And then, the worst. Someone contacted my mother's former assistant, offering her a 5-figure sum to share what she knew. She called me crying. I wanted to scream, to drag them into the court of public shame. But I didn't. Instead, we added it to the file, a documented pattern of intimidation. I kept showing up to hearings like it was a performance review, notes in hand, calm face on. Inside, I was breaking glass. During one deposition, my father looked at me across the table and smiled, not kindly, triumphantly. "You think a trust can protect you from family?" he whispered, just low enough not to be transcribed. I smiled back. "No, but it protects her from you." After the session, Geraldine handed me a Post-it, just a name and a number. "What is this?" "A paralegal in Miami. She used to work for your father's attorney. She's seen things." The first time I called her, she hung up. The second time, she answered. "I can't help you," she said. "But if I were you, I'd check the March 10th email drafts from his office. They sent something to a private Gmail. It's not in Discovery." That night, I drove to the old law firm building, empty, closed for the weekend. But I didn't need their files. I needed the IT guy. He owed me a favor, from back when I helped his sister get a medical loan discharged. "You didn't get this from me," he said, before handing me a flash drive. On it, a full folder of auto-saved drafts. And one of them, dated March 10th. Subject line, "Let's move fast before the sedation schedule starts." The folder became my shield. Inside it, proof of intention, timestamps, digital fingerprints of a plan laid in shadows. That March 10th email. It wasn't just damning, it was surgical. It listed her medications, time of day for sedation, and a timeline to finalize signature protocols. That phrasing alone made Geraldine's eyebrows twitch when I read it to him. "We need a digital forensics expert," he said. 2 days later, we had one. A woman named Leora, ex-FBI, now working in private asset protection. She wore black like it was armor and spoke in clipped, brilliant sentences. I trusted her within 5 minutes. "Email's authentic," she confirmed. "Metadata matches. But here's the twist. Your father's legal counsel didn't just draft this. The sending device? Not from their office IP. It was a home connection. Someone tried to mask it." A mask. Of course. They knew what they were doing. Meanwhile, the court date loomed. The tension in our house was constant, like the hum of electricity behind the walls. My mother was quieter now. She had moments of lucidity, flickers of recognition. Once, as I helped her into bed, she looked at me, suddenly clear-eyed. "You're protecting something." "I'm protecting you," I whispered. She nodded, eyes glistening. "Then don't flinch." That became my mantra. The morning of the hearing, I wore a charcoal suit, no frills. My father arrived in navy, flanked by lawyers like storm clouds. He barely looked at me. Inside the courtroom, our seats were cold, the fluorescent light too sharp, but Geraldine's opening statement cut cleaner than any spotlight. "The petition to contest is not just baseless, it is reckless. It relies on forged intent and a timeline that collapses under scrutiny." He paused, then gestured to the evidence pile. "We will demonstrate this not with opinions, but with facts. Digital footprints, medical logs, communication records. We will not speculate. We will show." I watched the judge nod slowly, eyes narrowed at the documents, and then came our exhibit, the March 10th email displayed on screen. "Who had access to this device?" the judge asked. Geraldine didn't answer. He simply turned to me. I stood. "My father did." Silence. The lawyer next to him visibly tensed. My father's jaw tightened. The courtroom absorbed the shift like a wave slamming into still water. Outside, reporters hovered. I said nothing, just walked past them, the wind catching my coat like a slow applause. That night, I sat alone in my car, engine off, city lights flickering outside, and I cried, not from fear or guilt or rage, but because for the first time in weeks, I felt the ground hold. It wasn't over, but the tide had turned. The call came at 6:12 a.m. sharp, too early for anything good. "This is Judge Ramirez's clerk. You're requested to appear at chambers by 9 a.m. No counsel." I didn't say anything, just blinked at the ceiling and let the quiet soak in. A meeting without lawyers meant only one thing: informal inquiry. Something had moved, shifted, or broken. By 8:52, I was outside the courthouse, the coffee in my hand already forgotten. I wore neutral colors, soft shoes, and a calm I didn't feel. The judge's chambers were wood-paneled, oppressively elegant. Ramirez sat behind a desk cluttered with case files and a small cactus blooming defiantly in the corner. She gestured for me to sit. "I'm not here to interrogate," she said. "I just want to understand what this case has become." I nodded. "It's about control," I said, "and legacy, and pretending power is a birthright instead of something you earn." She watched me closely. "And your role?" My role was silence, for a long time, until that silence became complicity. Ramirez leaned back. "The digital evidence you submitted, it's clean, verified, and disturbing." I didn't respond. "Why do you think your father pushed so hard, risked everything?" "He didn't believe the rules applied to him." "And you?" "I believe rules are what save us when people like him forget their place." She tapped her fingers once, slowly, before dismissing me. "We'll reconvene tomorrow. Be ready." Outside, the sun had risen fully. Harsh, unforgiving light. I took the long way home, let my phone die in my pocket, let the world wait. Back at the house, my father's car was gone. My mother was asleep. On the counter was a yellow Post-it, her handwriting crooked but deliberate. "Trust isn't about paperwork. It's about who shows up when no one's watching." That afternoon, Geraldine called. "They've withdrawn the medical coercion claim." I almost dropped the phone. "What?" "Officially, they're repositioning, trying to pivot to undue influence by advisor. They're grasping. They're bleeding." But desperation, I knew, could be dangerous. That night, my father left a voicemail, his voice soft, almost warm. "I don't know what you think this will fix, but we're still family." I didn't answer. The next morning, a package arrived, no return label, just my name, handwritten. Inside was a flash drive and a note. "If you're going to expose everything, you deserve to know everything." It was heavier than it should have been, that tiny flash drive, as if it carried more than files, as if it held intentions, regrets, betrayals baked into binary. I waited until the house was empty, drew the blinds, shut off every notification. Then I plugged it in. The folder was titled simply, "Redacted." Inside, a collection of audio files, emails, and 2 video clips. The earliest timestamp was from 2 years ago, before my mother's diagnosis, before any trust revisions, before the facade began to crack. The first recording was a voice memo, my father's voice, low, coaxing. "She's too soft, still believes people mean well. You need to convince her that restructuring is in her best interest. No pressure, just make it feel like her idea." My hands went cold. The next was a screen recording, a Zoom call, 4 people, names blurred, but one voice I recognized instantly, the family lawyer. "We'll use her upcoming checkup, frame it around long-term care needs, emotional vulnerability. It'll slide under the radar if we move fast." The lawyer laughed. Someone else added, "If her daughter resists, will say she's overreacting. She's always been dramatic. I paused the video, stood up, walked away. When I came back, I opened the second video. It was from a hidden camera, blurry, angled from under a desk. My father and the lawyer again, talking about a backup plan, about neutralizing the daughter if she became a liability. She won't risk burning bridges. She's careful. She plays by rules. Then my father smirked. And if she doesn't, we'll remind her what she stands to lose. The threat was clear, and now I had it. I called Geraldine. We need to prepare for escalation. Worse than this? They've been watching me, planning this longer than I thought. He sighed. Then we use it. We file for injunctive protection. We make this public, carefully. No, not yet. Why? Because if I go nuclear now, they'll spin it. They'll twist it into a vendetta. So what's the plan? I stared at the screen, at my father's face frozen mid-laugh. I want to break the myth. Quietly, cleanly, let him watch it fall apart from the inside. Geraldine paused. Then we'll do it your way, but you'd better be ready for the fallout. I'm counting on it. That night, I backed up the drive twice. One in a safe deposit box, one sent to a journalist, anonymously, with no return. Let him wonder when the truth would surface. Let him sweat. They didn't see it at first. That was the beauty of it. I didn't slam doors. I didn't leak emails to tabloids. I let things hum along in the soft golden glow of silence, while the structure beneath began to rot, and it was my father himself who handed me the crowbar. It came during a conference call, a routine check-in with the trust's compliance officer. Cameras on, smiles stiff, Geraldine unbothered as always, and my father, still convinced he had time, still trying to sound cooperative while carving loopholes in the background. Of course, we're committed to a smooth resolution, he said, adjusting his cufflinks. My daughter and I simply interpret the intent of the documents differently. The compliance officer nodded. Intent is secondary to execution. The documents stand. Your daughter's position is aligned with legal protocol. Something flickered across my father's face. Not anger, calculation. I see, he said slowly. Then perhaps we should explore a restructuring of the family partnership outside the trust, realign certain assets. Those assets, I interrupted, are listed in Schedule E. They're frozen pending resolution. I wasn't referring to Schedule E. That was the tell. He'd revealed the existence of other assets, ones not disclosed in court. After the call, I called Leora, the digital forensics expert. I need to trace private transfers, non-disclosed assets, shell activity, offshore. She didn't even hesitate. Send me the account leads you suspect. I'll handle the rest. By the weekend, she had a list. 3 LLCs in the Caymans, 1 in Nevada, all recent, all opened by an intermediary with ties to my father's old business partner. And 1 wire transfer, 6 figures, moved discreetly 2 days after the trust was locked. Straight into an art investment platform, registered to a firm with no website, no staff, just a mailbox in Zurich. When I showed Geraldine, he whistled. This isn't just ego, this is evasion. We filed a supplemental brief, quietly, no fanfare, and with it, we requested a financial freeze on all known and adjacent entities tied to the petitioner. My father. The court approved it in less than 36 hours. He must have found out before the ink dried, because he showed up at my apartment unannounced. No driver, no blazer, just him. You think this makes you right? He said, stepping over the threshold like it still belonged to him. I think it makes you seen. For the first time, he looked old. "You've always been good at paperwork," he said bitterly. "And you've always underestimated what paperwork can do." He turned to leave, then paused. "Careful, not all walls protect, some trap." I smiled. "Then it's a good thing I built this one myself." After he left, I locked the door. Then I sat at the kitchen table and opened the final affidavit Geraldine had prepared, the one that formally requested full asset protection status for my mother, naming me as secondary trustee. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt necessary, and sometimes that's stronger than victory. The morning the court granted the freeze, I woke to silence so complete it felt artificial. No phone vibrations, no headlines, just stillness, as if the storm had inhaled and was deciding whether to scream or vanish. By noon, I had my answer. The firm representing my father filed a motion to dismiss, not the entire case, just their involvement. They cited a breakdown in communication and irreconcilable client behavior. In lawyer speak, that meant, "We're jumping ship before this thing sinks completely." I showed the filing to Geraldine. He raised a brow. "They know what's coming. They want out before he pulls them under." And what was coming? A forensic audit of every asset, every transfer, every transaction since the first whisper of coercion, all under court supervision now. But the truth is, winning never looks how you expect it to. It's not a parade, it's not applause. It's a small, sterile room where a court officer hands you a sealed letter and says, "It's done." Inside, the ruling. Plain, black ink on white paper, the trust was upheld, all claims denied. My mother's mental capacity had been evaluated retroactively by court-appointed experts. Their conclusion? She understood the terms, she signed of sound mind. But what made me fold into tears was the last paragraph. The court finds the daughter's actions aligned with fiduciary duty, demonstrating intent to preserve the integrity of the trust and the well-being of the original grantor. Preserve the integrity. Preserve her. The drive home felt like floating. I passed the coffee shop where I'd once studied the trust papers like sacred texts. I passed the lawyer's office where it had all begun. I passed the park where I'd cried into my coat sleeve after the first hearing. And when I reached the house, my mother was sitting in the sunroom, facing the light. She looked up and smiled. "You did it, didn't you?" "I did." "I don't remember everything," she said, "but I remember you never stopped showing up." I knelt beside her and placed the court letter in her lap. Her hands trembled, but she held it like it was something holy. From the corner of the room, a small sound. A phone buzz. A message from an unknown number. No text, just a file attachment. I opened it. A voice memo. My father. "I never thought you'd go through with it. But here we are. Just know, legacies have long shadows, and this isn't the end." I stared at the screen, then deleted it. Not with anger, with peace. Some things aren't worth replying to. The weeks after the ruling moved in slow motion, like the world was recalibrating. There were no more court dates, no depositions, no fresh fires to put out. Just paperwork, lots of it. And the quiet grief of realizing how much had been lost in the war, no one saw. I took my mother to the beach on a Tuesday, no occasion, just warm weather and the scent of salt water. She held my hand as we walked the shore, and though she said little, I saw it in her eyes, the flicker of peace. Later, back home, I found a small locked box buried in her closet. It was wooden, hand-carved, with initials etched faintly into the lid. Her maiden name. Inside were old letters, photos, a pressed flower, and at the very bottom, a folded sheet of legal paper yellowed with age. A will, handwritten, dated long before the trust, before the illness, before me. I want the next generation to feel free, it said, not indebted to names, not burdened by legacy, only protected by love. I sat with that for a long time. In the end, she had always known. The next day, Geraldine and I met to finalize the new structure. My role as co-trustee was now permanent, with asset dispersals frozen until long-term care plans were formalized. No one else, not even blood, could override the clause. He pushed a folder toward me. There's one last thing, a press inquiry. They know a ruling happened and they're asking for comment. I shook my head. No statements, no interviews. Let the silence speak for itself. He nodded. Classy? Very you. As I left his office, the receptionist handed me a small package. No sender, she said. Inside, a single page, typed, simple. You may have won the trust, but not the story. No name. But I knew the tone. I burned it that night. No drama. Just a quiet flame in the backyard fire pit, beneath the same stars my mother once pointed out to me as a child. Orion, she'd said, isn't hunting. He's protecting. It made sense now. Sometimes the hero isn't the one who fights loudest. Sometimes she's the one who keeps the paper trail and walks away when it's done. I didn't keep the binders. I donated them to a legal aid nonprofit that supports elder protection cases. Let them become something better than evidence. Let them protect someone else. What I kept was smaller, a single photo of my mother on the porch, book in lap, eyes half closed in the sun, and the original trust document, framed, sealed, tucked into the back of a drawer like a heartbeat I didn't need to hear, but still needed close. My father no longer called. His silence wasn't peace. It was surrender in a tailored suit. Word spread, of course, not the details. Those were locked down tighter than ever. But enough. Enough that I got polite nods in grocery stores and quiet, knowing looks from people who used to speak too loudly in rooms that weren't theirs. One woman from the firm's advisory board sent a handwritten note. Your quiet won louder than any name ever could. It made me cry. And then I moved on. I left the city, took a job in a smaller firm specializing in ethical estate design. I help families now, the ones no one thinks will fall apart until they do. I listen to what they don't say. I spot the red flags others call traditions. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes, I see a father sit across from a daughter and say, "It's yours, but only if you earn it." And I tell the daughter, "You already have." The legacy wasn't the money. It never was. It was the line in the sand. The moment someone says, "No more harm in this name." My mother's mind faded gently, but her smile never did. On her last good day, she looked at me and whispered, "Did you build the wall?" I nodded. She closed her eyes, peaceful. "Then I can rest." And she did.